18th of February 2025. I'm writing from my garden today. It's beautifully warm in the sunshine, which chases away the cold night and promises the hope of spring. I sit quietly for a moment, listening for the bird song, appreciating the calm of the countryside that surrounds me. I am here to meet with God, listening for his voice. The palm branches on the trees close by rustle and sough as the breeze stirs them, and as I tune into my surroundings, I hear goats. One of the things that has disturbed me over the last 3.5 weeks is the toxicity within a group of believers called mountain goats. I have severed my connection with them very sadly to shut out the voices that spoke wisdom and knowledge over me, that caused me to doubt myself, hurt and confuse me, all in the name of Christ. I've never before been confronted by this kind of attack in such force, and have withdrawn back to the place I should not have left, yet have been absent from for too long, the feet of Yeshua. This Mary became a Martha. Now I choose to return to being a Mary, seeking to hear his voice telling me what to do next. I've had to fight to get here, but I know the fight will be worth it, so I listen. During my dash to reach this place, I did not pick up my usual Jewish study Bible, but took an old NIV Life Application Bible that has long been relegated to a shelf. Turning to Song of Songs 2:13, where I left off yesterday, I'm immediately alerted to something which causes me to look closer. There is a difference in the numbering of the verses here, which often occurs in Christian Bibles due to translation at the time of separation between the church and the root of our faith, Judaism, way back in 325 AD. Subsequent translators have altered words and even the layout of the Bible, which has led to many differences, of which I am very aware. The difference here works to completely change the verse, thereby completely changing the meaning. Today I am pleased this is so, because in reading this verse, God is speaking volumes to me. The fig tree forms its early fruit, the blossoming vines spread their fragrance. What's so special about that, I hear you ask? Let me explain. The Bible notes explain the lovers celebrated their joy in the creation and in their love. God created the world, the beauty we see, the joy of love and intimacy, and gave us senses to enjoy them. Never let problems, conflicts, or the ravages of time ruin your ability to enjoy God's gifts. Take time to enjoy the world God has created. Well, yes, I agree with all of that, and maybe that was relevant at the time of publishing in 1988, and is good advice at any time. But that is not actually the meaning of this verse, and not what I'm hearing right now. No, something much deeper and relevant to the place and time I am in now is the meaning of this verse. The verse is referenced by Isaiah in chapter 28:4, also in Jeremiah 24:2, Hosea 9:10, Micah 7:1, Nahum 3:12, and is repeated by King Solomon himself, who wrote the song, the Song of Solomon 7:12. My interest is immediately piqued, and I ask the question, why would all of those prophets have mentioned the same verse? Reading in Jeremiah chapter 24, the prophet has received a vision. It was after Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, had carried Yehoiakim, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Yehuda, along with the leaders of Yehuda, the artisans and the skilled workers, into exile from Jerusalem, and brought them to Babel, that Adonai gave me a vision. There in front of the temple of Adonai, 2 baskets of figs were placed. One of the baskets had in it very good figs, like those that ripen first, while the other basket had very bad figs, so bad they were inedible. Then Adonai asked me, Yirmiyahu, what do you see? I answered, figs. The good figs are very good, but the bad ones are very bad, so bad they are inedible. The word of Adonai came to me. Here is what Adonai, the God of Israel, says. I will regard the exiles from Yehuda, whom I sent away from this place to the land of the Kasdim, as good, just as I do these figs. I will look after them for their good. I will bring them back to this land. I will build them up and not tear them down, plant them and not pull them up. I will give them a heart to know me, that I am Adonai. They will be my people, and I will be their God, for they will return to me with all their heart. But concerning the bad figs that are so bad as to be inedible, Adonai says, I will make Zedekiah, the king of Yehuda, and his leaders resemble them. Likewise the rest of Yerushalayim remaining in this land, and those living in the land of Egypt. Everywhere I drive them, I will make them an object of horror, repulsive to all the kingdoms of the earth, a disgrace, a byword, a laughing stock, and a curse. And I will send sword, famine, and plague among them until they have disappeared from the land I gave them and their ancestors. Following on from this, I glance at Jeremiah chapter 25 and note that although Jeremiah received the word concerning all the people of Yehuda in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Yoshiahu, king of Yehuda, although the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, this word is very relevant for today. Jeremiah says that although there have been multiple warnings over a period of years, the people didn't listen. The message was always, every one of you turn back from his evil way, from the evil of your actions. Then you will live in the land Adonai gave you and your ancestors forever and ever. Don't follow other gods by serving and worshipping them. Don't provoke my anger with things your own hands have made. Then I will do you no harm. But you wouldn't listen to me, says Adonai, so that you could provoke me with the products of your hands to your own harm. Therefore, here is what Adonai Sabaoth says. Because you haven't paid attention to what I've been saying, I'm going to send for all the families of the north, says Adonai, and for my servant Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babel, and bring them against this land, against its inhabitants, and against all the surrounding nations. I will completely destroy them, making them an object of horror and ridicule, a perpetual ruin. Moreover, I will silence among them the sounds of joy and gladness, the voice of bridegroom and bride, the grinding of millstones and the light of lamps. This entire land will become a ruin, a waste, and these nations will serve the king of Babel for 70 years. But when the 70 years are over, I will punish the king of Babel and that nation for their sin, says Adonai, and I will turn the land of the Kasdim into everlasting ruins. I will inflict on that land all my words that I have decreed against it, everything written in this book, in which Yirmiyahu has prophesied against all the nations, for they too will become slaves to many nations and to powerful kings. I will pay them back according to their deeds and the work of their own hands. You can read that in Jeremiah 25, 1-14. The people of Yehuda disobeyed God, ignoring his commandments as decreed on Mount Sinai, following their escape from Egypt. Now Adonai chooses to send them back into captivity as a punishment. After 70 years, they were allowed to return to the land and to rebuild the temple of Solomon, which had been destroyed. But had the lesson been learned? Apparently not, for they were exiled again at a later date. As I reflect on world events taking place as I write, Israel surrounded by those wishing to destroy them, devastation in Lebanon and Syria, Yemen under attack from the USA in retaliation for terrorist attacks, war in Ukraine, attacked by Russia, trouble in Turkey, but also fires, floods, earthquakes, volcanoes erupting, famines and unrest and rioting in many countries. God is again disciplining his people. I'm just back from a trip to Luxembourg, catching up with friends. I had gone with the intention of catching up with God, fasting for the first 3 days before Purim and praying for Israel during this time of trouble. I listened for his voice, waited to hear what he wants me to do for him as I reset my life after a long period of distress, feeling lost, alone, and very far from God. Disappointed, I returned home without the clarity I was searching for, but determined to try to make a difference in this troubled world we live in. I remember other trips when his voice came to me when I least expected it, sitting at the airport, such a busy place, awaiting my return flight, on a bus or a noisy crowded train. This time I reached home tired but rejuvenated just a little. Back at my breakfast table, enjoying the rays of sunshine streaming through the windows, listening to the birdsong outside and worshipping him with song. I hear a song from the 90s and know that this is his voice speaking to me. Take My Healing to the Nations is the title of the song. I hear a young child crying and see tears of unending pain. I've watched this war-torn nation treating life with such disdain. My heart grieves to know that these haven't come to understand that I suffer for their sufferings and died that they might live again. Take my healing to the nations, bind their broken hearts with love, stretch my hand throughout creation with this message of my love, that I came to bring light in their darkness and bring joy where there once was pain. Take my healing to the nations, bind their broken hearts with love. Now my heart returns to life, my tears flow, and I know that my heart grieves as our Lord's does, as I realize that I too suffer for all the suffering I see worldwide, most of all for Israel and all that has befallen them since the terrible attack on the 17th of October 2023. I am his disciple. I feel as he feels, and I long to take his love to those who suffer, whoever and wherever they are. This is my calling. Here I am, Lord, I pray. Send me. There is more as I listen to the song. For the fields are ready for harvest, and the labourers, they're so few. Countless still that I want to fill, but the task isn't mine to do. I gave them my commandment, go and preach good tidings of love, for I finished the work on Calvary, and their healing's already been done. So, take my healing to the nations. 35 years ago he spoke these words to me. I thought that you would call me Father and never stop following me. From Jeremiah 3:19. I didn't understand, couldn't understand. I did call him Father, but now I understand. I must speak to Israel, and any who will listen. Speak to their broken hearts and tell them how much they are still loved by the God who chose them to be his people. I must tell them of their Messiah, the one who they are, still waiting for. I must take his healing to this nation and bind their hearts with his love. But how? My devotional for this day, here is Whisper, continues his instruction. Arise and run with me. Awaken, my mighty soldier, awaken. The hour is late, and I call you to arise and run with me. I have prepared you for such a time as this. Do not be afraid, I will be with you. Put on your weapons of righteousness and take your place in battle formation. I will thunder at the head of my army. I will bring swift victory before your eyes. No power of hell is able to hinder when I arise. Shake off your slumber, rub the sleep from your eyes, and come. Like David, man after my heart, let your heart be filled with courage. Let your thoughts be steadfast, fixed on me. I will lead you. Where I lead, it is impossible for you to fail. My child, follow me into the new horizons of holiness and taste the power of the ages to come. My spirit is upon you, my word burns in your soul. I love you, my child. This is your day of victory, for I'm calling you back to me, your eternal Father. This is based on 1 Timothy 6:11-12. But you, as a man of God, flee from these things, Paul tells Timothy. That is to say, respect those in authority, masters at that time. Respect the elderly and younger men, older women like mothers and younger women like sisters, with absolute purity. Show respect to widows in need. Provide for your family and those in need. Don't show favoritism. In other words, obey the second commandment when God commands us to love our neighbour as ourselves. Continuing on in 1 Timothy 6:4-5, I read, also, don't be conceited, and don't be greedy for wealth and material riches. For the love of money is the root of all evil, I think. And that is true. So, obey God's commandments. But you, as a man of God, flee from these things and pursue righteousness, godliness, faithfulness, love, steadfastness, gentleness. Fight the good fight of the faith. Take hold of the eternal life to which you were called when you testified so well to your faith before many witnesses. So reading Paul's advice to Timothy may sound like Timothy himself was not living the life he should have been living as a man of God. In fact, he was a Jewish man of God who had himself become a rabbi at the time of Paul's letter to him, written in 62 or 63 AD, 30 years after Yeshua had been crucified and risen again, showing himself to be the true promised Messiah. Paul is advising Timothy to stay in Ephesus so that he can teach and correct false doctrine. Ephesus, in modern-day Turkey, was the most important city in Western Asia Minor at that time, as it was called in ancient times. It was a huge city with a population of around 200 to 250,000, rivaling Antioch, Corinth, Alexandria, and even Rome. It acted as the epicenter for worship of most of the Greek and Roman gods. Artemis was the Greek, and Diana, Roman, actually the same goddess, the twin of the god Apollo and daughter of Zeus. She was often identified with the goddess Heket as Phosphorus, bringer of light. So, Artemis or Diana was worshipped as the bringer of light, while Nero Caesar was their lord, the Roman emperor who was known to have doused early believers in wax and oil and set them on fire to light his garden parties at night. The Artemis Temple in Ephesus was known as one of the 7 wonders of the world, and the early church at Ephesus encountered much spiritual opposition from the temple as well as the 14 or more other Greek deities. No surprise then that Ephesus was also a centre of magical practices, i.e. witchcraft. See Acts 19, verse 19. Not surprising either that among the truths preached by believers of the true light, those who had come to know the one true Lord, Yeshua, there were those who still had not let go of the ideas and beliefs to do with idolatry and false doctrines that has been prevalent for so long, and continued to preach these false doctrines among the extremely small group of believers who had been following Paul's teachings. Have them stop devoting their attention to myths and never-ending genealogies. Genealogies. Paul tells Timothy, these divert people to speculating instead of doing God's work, which requires trust. The purpose of this order, Paul continues, is to promote love from a clean heart, from a good conscience, and from sincere trust. Some, by aiming amiss, have wandered off into fruitless discussion. They want to be teachers of the Torah, but they understand neither their own words nor the matters about which they make such emphatic pronouncements. We read in 1 Timothy 1, 3-7. If things were bad then, just think about the times we're living in now. Paul stated in his second letter to Timothy, understand this, in the Acharit Hayamim, literally the end of the days, the end times, or better days, when the Olam Hazeh, this world or this age, is coming to a close, and the Olam Haba, the world to come, is about to begin. See 1 Corinthians 10:11 and Matthew 12:32 and onwards. So at this time, which is the time we're actually living in right now, the end of the end times, will come trying times. People will be self-loving, money-loving, proud, arrogant, insulting, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, uncontrolled, brutal, hateful of good, traitorous, headstrong, swollen with conceit, loving pleasure rather than God, as they retain the outer form of religion but denying its power. Stay away from these people. You can read that in 2 Timothy 3 verses 1-5. Paul certainly got that right, and this is certainly the time we're living in right now. But remember those 2 baskets of figs I read about in Jeremiah? The basket of good figs and the basket of bad ones. We will all stand before the throne of God one day, and as he looked upon those baskets before him, so he will look upon us. You may be thinking that the good figs represent those who believe in him, whether Jew or Gentile. Those who serve him, represent him, take his love to the nations, while the bad figs are those who live a sinful life outside of any belief in him. Sadly, this is not the message Jeremiah, Paul, and so many other prophets throughout the ages were bringing. No. Shockingly, both fig baskets are representative of God's people. In Jeremiah's day, it was the Levitical priests and the Cohens who served in the temple, leaders who brought the people before God, offering up sacrifices and prayers so that the people would appear before God as clean, righteous, holy. Paul's letter was addressed to Timothy, advising him as to how to speak to those who were teaching false doctrine. One foot in the assembly, who stood before God, the other foot still in the worshipping of pagan gods, idolatry, and of all the evil practices that so displease God. As a disciple of Yeshua, I examine my heart today and see there's some work to be done. Through trials and tribulation, my heart has become hardened. Age, ill health, and troubles have caused me to become intolerant, impatient, and judgmental. I am tired, yet I've not given up, and I hope he hasn't given up on me, as he never gave up on his chosen ones, even when they angered him, bringing his punishment down on them. Here, the days are coming, says Adonai through Jeremiah, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their fathers on the day that I took them by their hand and brought them out of the land of Egypt, because they, for their part, violated my covenant, even though I, for my part, was a husband to them, says Adonai. For this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Adonai. I will put my Torah within them and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will any of them teach his fellow community members or his brother, "Know Adonai," for all will know me, from the least of them to the greatest, because I will forgive their wickedness and remember their sins no more. And more, he continues. This is what Adonai says: who gives the sun as light for the day, who ordained the laws for the moon and stars, to provide light for the night, who stirs up the sea until its waves roar. Adonai Zavaot is his name. If these laws leave my presence, says Adonai, then the offspring of Israel will stop being a nation in my presence forever. This is what Adonai says: if the sky above can be measured and the foundations of the earth be fathomed, then I will reject all the offspring of Israel for all that they have done, says Adonai. You can read that in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 30 to 36, and in your Christian Bibles probably verses 31 to 37. At the Last Supper during Pesach, Passover, Yeshua took the elements of the Seder, ceremonial evening meal celebrating during Pesach in Jewish homes, and from which the Christian communion derives, claiming that they were the establishment of the new covenant. He spoke of this cup which is poured out for humankind, the cup of redemption, as the new covenant in his blood. His death and resurrection brought about the establishment of the new covenant with Israel and Yehudah through the mystery of the good news, also inclusive of Gentile believers in Yeshua the Messiah. In his letter to the Ephesians, Paul talks much about Gentile believers being members of the body of Christ, fellow heirs, and mutual partakers of the promises in Messiah, Yeshua, through the gospel. Ephesians 3, 1-7. But whether Jew or Gentile, he urged all to lead a life worthy of the calling to which we have been called. Always be humble, gentle, and patient, bearing with one another in love and making every effort to preserve the unity the Spirit gives through the binding power of Shalom. Ephesians 4, 1-2. In Ephesians 4:25, therefore, he tells the Ephesians, stripping of falsehood, let everyone speak truth with his neighbor. These are the things you are to do. Speak the truth to each other in your courts. Administer justice that is true and conducive to peace. Don't plot harm against each other, and don't love perjury. For all these are things I hate, says Adonai. Zechariah 8:16. Sorry, can't read my own writing. 16 to something. 17 maybe. Be angry, but do not sin, Paul says in Ephesians 4:26-27. Don't let the sun go down before you have dealt with the cause of your anger, otherwise you leave room for the adversary. Psalm 4, verse 5. Paul goes on to say, stop stealing. Not that I think any I know are guilty of that, although, But here is what is so difficult for us who live in today's world. Let no harmful language come from your mouth, only good words that are helpful in meeting the need. words that will benefit those that hear them. Don't cause grief to God's Ruach HaKodesh, for he has stamped you as his property until the day of final redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, violent assertiveness and slander, along with all spitefulness. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, and forgive each other, just as in the Messiah God has also forgiven you. Ephesians 4:29-32. Thinking back on recent days, I know how far I have fallen, reacting to those who speak harsh, condemning words to me. I vow as I write these words to do better, seeing in my mind's eye the basket of inedible figs. How easy it is to slip up. Paul says more on the ways of sin which the Gentiles were involved in, so few amongst the backdrop of the corruption and sin of the multitude around them. So easy to be drawn, so easy to react. But he understood the battle as God does, and reminds them that they are forgiven through the Messiah, redeemed by his blood. On the 27th of March 2025, I wake from a dream. It takes me a while to surface from sleep. It takes me longer to come back to myself, for the dream was vivid and disturbing. As I lay sifting through the scenes, I know that God has answered my prayers. I had ended the day in deep confession, convicted of sin, lashon hara, or the evil tongue in Hebrew, one of the worst, lashing hara in my case, I might say. The evil tongue, my tongue has lashed, wounded, caused harm, and once out the words spoken, shouted, screamed, cannot be undone, even if apologies are made. Soothing words refuting the angry, harsh tirade that has streamed forth. Okay, I might add, it was after much provocation, in pain and distress caused by another. Our heavenly judge is not swayed by excuses. The sin is mine, and I must own it, confess, and try to change it. So I poured it out, told him what he knew anyway, for he knows all and sees all. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us, I hear in my ear. Yes, I am forgiven. We are forgiven. But we must walk forward, trying to live the life to which we've been called, onward and upward, doing our best to emulate Yeshua, our perfect role model. Yes, we know he got angry too, righteous anger in his case. In your anger, do not sin, I hear in my ear. In his case, it was not sin. In my case, it is. And I let the sun go down on it too. But back to the dream and the theme of my writing, since I began to focus on figs. As I pondered, sifting through the images, I knew that God was showing me something in this dream. It was a reality, my life marred by emotional, mental, spiritual and even physical abuse at times. So marred that at 70 years old I am burnt out, so tired after a life lived trying to fight for my very survival. I have survived, but there are scars, many scars, and open wounds, causing bitterness, rage and anger. I am ugly, unclean in his sight, grieving him as well as the people I respond to, as well as my own self. In truth, I've never been the one who created me to be so caught up in the cycle of abuse. I understand clearly that I must make a choice. We all must make a choice. Continue this way and die, or break away and be free. It was for freedom that Christ has set us free, echo the words of a song from way back. No longer to be subject to a yoke of slavery. I glance down at my daily devotional waiting to be read. I am your Redeemer stares up at me from the page. What you see now is not what will be forever. There may be trouble in your family, but it will not last forever. There may be trouble around you, but it will soon disappear. Set your heart on my faithfulness and don't be distracted by the impossibility that limits you. I am your Father, and I have plans to prosper you and make you fruitful in my vineyard. Take rest in my words, take joy in my love. This day I will open up your eyes to see my saving power. I have come. My redeeming grace will be unveiled before you. This is the day when I will arise to redeem your life and fully restore it back to me. From today forward, my presence will be upon you in unmistakable ways. My face will lead your steps and protect you from all that may come against you. Though a raging flood threatens you, I will lift you high, and you will see my glory, for the day of the Redeemer has come. And that is based on Psalm 34:17. And I read, "The righteous cried out, and Adonai heard, and he saved them from all their troubles." In my Complete Jewish Study Bible, Psalm 34:17 reads, "But the face of Adonai opposes those who do evil, to cut off all memory of them from the earth." In the one, I question if I am righteous. In the other, I feel condemned. Do you feel condemned? Do you feel righteous? I am dismayed until I remember that Avram, in talking to God, asked Adonai, "God, what good will your gifts be to me if I continue childless, and Eliezer from Damascus inherits my possessions? You haven't given me a child," Avram continued. "So someone born in my house will be my heir." This was customary at that time. A childless man could adopt one of his own male servants to be heir of his estate. Clearly, Avram was considering what would happen after he died. But, we are told, the word of Adonai came to him. "This man will not be your heir. No, your heir will be a child from your own body." Then God brought him outside and said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars, if you can count them. Your descendants will be that many." Avram believed in Adonai, and he credited it to him as righteousness. And you can read that in Genesis 15:2-6. So God credited Abraham as righteous when he believed God's promise, and for believing. No good works needed here. But what about the verse in my Complete Jewish Study Bible, closer to the original scroll? Therefore, Paul assures the Christians, if anyone is united with the Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus, he is a new creation. The old has passed. Look, what has come is fresh and new. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Remember the words of the song written by Dave Bilbrough years ago? "I am a new creation, no more in condemnation. Here in the grace of God I stand." Maybe some of you weren't even born when that was first sung. I'll send it to you. But there's more. Let the above words reverberate in your mind today as I finish with verses 19-20 of Psalm 34 in my Jewish Bible. Adonai is near those with broken hearts. He saves those whose spirit is crushed. The righteous person suffers many evils, but Adonai rescues him out of them all. You are loved. Never let anybody tell you you are condemned. Never let anybody tell you you are not worthy or you are unrighteous. Just keep believing in the words that God had spoken for so many years, for such a time as this. I give you shalom and blessings.